A very happy and blessed new year to you all. I know that some of you will be celebrating the Feast of the Epiphany today. Others it's going to be Wednesday, depends on which country you're in. But I thought it would be a good opportunity just to reflect a little bit on who these three wise men are and why their journey can inspire us and what we can learn from their journey to Bethlehem. Why do we love so much the story of these three Magi, the three wise men? Why have they captured the imagination of people throughout the generations? And I think it's because their story tells the whole story, the Christian story, but also the human story. We can see our journey in their journey. And the three wise men were probably astronomers, maybe astrologists, and they were seeking to understand and measure the night skies, but also within the night skies, seeking signs of God and God's providential guidance and plan. God is speaking to us all the time, whether it be through direct revelation with the shepherds and Mary and Joseph, or through indirect revelation, through nature, through people, through history, which is the journey of the three wise men. And I'd like to take 11 things we can learn from their journey today. The first thing we can learn from the three wise men is that they were seekers of the truth, seekers and not spectators. Every night they would actively and excitedly scour the night skies with their questioning and curious minds. And this is what led them to Christ, that led them to God. A great example of this to show how we can fall into like a spiritual laziness, our minds fall asleep as we get older, is go to primary school classes and watch the kids. They have millions of questions. Why? I find it exhilarating when you go there because your mind becomes awake, and it's fascinating to see these minds, the curious and questioning minds. And they will find if they keep questioning like that. The problem is, as we get older, we tend to fall asleep. Big deal. We lose astonishment. As Christians, as Catholics, we must take the time to look, search, ponder and read the signs of the times. The second lesson we can learn is that they were willing to go to any length to find what they were looking for. The journey they set out upon was a long, arduous and dangerous journey, because traveling back in the day was difficult and dangerous and even life-threatening. The shepherds went 5 minutes down the road, but these guys went on a 2-3 month journey. So it was a huge, they wagered their money, energy, time, and even their lives in finding what they were looking for. And they went in haste. Like the shepherds and Mary, once they saw the sign, they acted upon it. They acted, they moved, they went, go. The Magi visibly had the comforts of princely lifestyles, but they were willing to leave that because something was missing. They were restless, they were unsatisfied, and they set off. The third lesson is they did not stop till they found Jesus. I'm sure they must have met many obstacles along the way. And they did actually in Jerusalem, we know of that. And I'm sure they were tempted to say many times, let's give up, let's go back. But it's inspiring to see how they continued. And when they came to Jerusalem, they went obviously to Herod thinking he's the king. He must know where the new king is going to be. Herod knew nothing about it. And the religious leaders there scoured the scriptures and said, well, he will be born in Bethlehem. But Bethlehem was only 6 miles away. And the religious leaders were so unenthusiastic, they couldn't even be bothered to walk traveled 6 miles to see the new king, while as the wise men, they persisted and they continued on. Perseverance always gets us there. Number 4, they came for the right reasons. The text tells us, verse 2, they came to do him homage, to worship him. That's it. Many people approached Jesus during his lifetime for healing, for influence, to get something from him, maybe bread and fishes multiplied, see miraculous things, but actually the essential is that we've come to worship. And during this time of Christmas, we realize that we've lost a lot this year. Loved ones, jobs, community, our freedoms, restrictions have made us lose many of the great gifts that we have in our society. We will never lose the Emmanuel. God is with us. And we can never lose this gift of adoration and worship. That's why we're here. That's why we celebrate the time of Christmas. Number 5, they gave Jesus the best they had, not the superficial, not the worst, not the least. They gave the best they had. We can see this through the gifts they gave. There's a cost to finding Jesus. There's a cost to searching for Jesus. we give him the best that we have. The religious leaders couldn't even be bothered finding the time or energy to walk a few miles down the road, whereas these men gave everything in their search for Jesus. Number 6, they hand over their treasures. They invite us to let go of material attachments. Letting go is always a sign that God is coming into our lives. And that the gold symbolizes their possessions, their treasures. The frankincense is kind of an incense, so it's a sign of prayer, liturgy, worship. We offer our hearts up to God. And the mirror was kind of a strange gift, but it's the mirror linked to the entombment and the mummification of bodies. But it's a sign of we have to die to ourselves. There's a death, a dying of self, if we really want to have the life of Christ in us. Number 7, they accept to be led by another, to be open to God's plans rather than our own little plans. And you know, today we speak so much about my dreams, my plans, my freedom, my will, my choices. But ultimately, look at the Christmas story. It's about being open to God's plan. Joseph, through his dreams, in difficult situations where he did not know what to do next, he was open to God's light, to God's guidance, to God's providential care, to God's plan. The shepherds, I'm sure they had projects as well and life plans. They allowed themselves to be interrupted in the joy of the birth of Jesus to guide them to Bethlehem. And these wise men as well, they allowed God's plan to come into their lives. And the amazing adventure that it is of opening up to a plan infinitely more than our little plans. And it will guide us to places that we never would have imagined to go, just purely on our own natural will and choice. Number 8, they are overjoyed when they see Jesus. Are we overjoyed when we see Jesus? Verse 10 tells us that their joy was intense. The shepherds spoke about a mega joy. This year of COVID has really robbed our joy, has robbed the joy from the world, so to speak. But this reminds us where our true joy comes from. It comes from the birth of our Lord, from the sign of the child with us in the midst of our troubles. A joy that the world cannot take away. Number 9, the sign of the child who is with his mother. The importance of Mary when finding Jesus. The shepherds had that sign. You will find the child with his mother wrapped in swaddling clothes. So the wise men, when they get to the dwelling place of Jesus, they see the sign. They saw the child with his mother Mary. All journeying to Jesus is through Mary. And that's why the first feast day of the year, the 1st of January, is Mary, Mother of God, to consecrate, to hand over to her. Because why? God started his journey on this earth in her hands. And so we start our year, our journey in her hands again. All begins with Mary. Number 10, they prostrate themselves in prayer. The importance of prayer. Verse 11 tells us that when they entered the dwelling place where they saw the child, they fell on the floor, an act of worship, an act of divine worship. These were people coming from probably paganism, and they've made that journey in faith. They have passed from being Magi to wise men. And it's a journey of transformation, which leads us to prosternation, to adoration, the ultimate act of a human and of a Christian. Number 11, if you notice in the text, verse 12, they don't take the same road home, they take a different road home. Our life takes a new direction when we truly encounter Jesus. There's a conversion, there's a transformation, a change of direction happened here. They went home a different way. And our lives change every time as well, where we truly encounter Jesus. I pray that the journey of the Magi, the journey of the 3 wise men, can enlighten and inspire your journey, that their curiosity, their perseverance, their obedience, their self-sacrifice, ultimately their worship and adoration can inspire your journey also. Thou child of man, lo to Bethlehem. The kings are travelling, travel with them. The star of mercy, the star of grace, shall lead thy heart to its resting place. Gold, incense, myrrh thou cannot bring. Offer thy heart to the infant King.